Thoughtful observers of the world have always looked around themselves and said, this is not how it's supposed to be. There are things wrong with this world and they need to be fixed. And the Bible very much agrees with that assessment. And part of the good news, quote unquote, of the Christian message of Jesus is that God is going to confront and ultimately defeat all those aspects of the world that are degrading, are dehumanizing, are destroying. To use the language of Revelation, God's judgment is when he destroys the destroyers of the earth. And one of the powerful symbols of that cleansing, of that healing in the book of Revelation is the fall of Babylon. Babel is Babel and Babylon. It's actually the same word in Hebrew. And in the early book of Genesis, there's this city called Babel, and they say, let's build a tower up to the heavens, and we're going to make a name for ourselves, and we are going to be the it place. And that hubris implodes on itself, and everyone is scattered, and it becomes a byword for human arrogance that ends up dissolving and destroying itself. In the book of Revelation, we're in chapter 18 today, and this is our second pass at the fall of Babylon. We saw it last time in chapter 17. And here we're going to be looking in particular at the angle of an economic critique. Many thoughtful observers of the world have said, since Karl Marx on, but in before, is that the base layer here is economics. And the Bible wouldn't go all the way with Marxist analysis, but it would say you're onto something in saying that power and human society, for good or ill, much of it flows through economic mechanisms. So we're going to take a look at that today. I'm sitting here with my friend Lindsay, and sorry for the long intro, but wanted to set it up. And last time, Lindsay, Destiny and I talked about this symbol of the whore of Babylon, and what is her role? How does she sit opposite this other woman, the bride of Christ, the ideal city of Jerusalem? Before we get to the ideal city of the New Jerusalem, though, we need to get into the muck of the evil city, which is Babylon.
Right.
And we, in the passage that we're going to look at today, we're going to be reading in the very symbolic language of the book of Revelation about the demise of Babylon, which in the first century seemed to be a way of speaking of the eventual demise of Rome, the Roman Empire, but looking even further afield to the inevitable demise of all systems of human arrogance, of human self-worship. And that is an impulse that surfaces again and again in every century, in every civilization. And part of the Christian like sigh of relief is to say, oh, thank God, that's not the final word here.
Yeah.
That it looks all powerful, but it's actually not. And so today we're going to understand a little bit more how that works.
Cool.
So
sounds good.
Do you want to read the first little bit and we'll just try to take it apart bit by bit?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Babylon's plagues, starting chapter 18, verse 1. It says, "After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven with great authority. The earth was lit up with his glory. He shouted out in a strong voice, and this is what he said. Babylon the Great has fallen. She has fallen. She has become a place for demons to live, a refuge for every unclean spirit, a refuge for every unclean bird, a refuge for every unclean, hateful monster. All the nations drank from the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth committed fornication with her, and the traders of the earth became rich from the power of her luxury."
Right, and that last little bit is forecasting the traders became rich from her luxury and so forth. When it talks about she's become a haunt for demons, and then it uses an adjective over and over again. The spirit for every unclean spirit, unclean birds, unclean, or every unclean, hateful monster. This is underscoring the contrast between this city and the New Jerusalem, which is a place characterized by holiness. And so it is, if this is the place where there's uncleanness, that is the place where there is cleanness. In our society, we have lost the general sense of what holiness is. And it's often kind of seen as sort of like a kind of a neurotic religious superstition that sort of like concerns for hygiene run amok.
Right.
But we could think in terms of hygiene, like this is the place, this is the Wuhan virus labology for COVID.
Right.
It's there. And every, it's a profoundly dirty place that's going to bring death, as opposed to the very sanitized, clean, holy, life-giving New Jerusalem. So that's part of the contrast there.
Okay.
It puts me in mind this sort of like, like post-COVID, you go through any major city and you're like downtown San Francisco and you're like, no one's here. This is crazy. And it gives you a sense of like being in this major city that's like, where is everybody? Yeah. And I think I'm not just trying to say San Francisco is Babylon, but it is certainly like that jarring that there should be a lot of people here. Yeah. Where are they?
They should be thriving. They should be good. Yeah.
Any thoughts or questions on that a little bit, or do you want to keep plowing forward?
Yeah, let's keep going forward.
Okay.
All right. In verse 4, then I heard another voice from heaven, and this is what it said. Come out of her, my people, so that you don't become embroiled in her sins, and so that you don't receive any of her plagues. Her sins are piled up to the sky, and God has remembered her wickedness. Pay her back as she has paid others. Give her double again for all her deeds. Mix her a double dose in her own cup, the cup in which she mixed her poisons. She made herself glorious and lived in luxury, balanced that by giving her torture and sorrow. She said in her heart, I'm the queen, I'm on the throne, I'm not a widow, I'm never going to be a mourner. Therefore her plagues will come in a single day, death, mourning, and famine, and she will be burned with fire because God the Lord, her judge, is strong. Man.
Yeah, in many ways, it's a sort of a dramatization of this phrase that it's traced to the book of Proverbs. Pride comes before the fall.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you're getting to these giddy heights of arrogance, that's the moment when it's all just going to come crashing down. I think the statement that jumps out to me, verse 7, she made herself glorious. In Greek, it maybe says a little more straightforwardly, she glorified herself.
Yeah.
Like, I want the glory. And that is always in the Bible. That is the signature of Satan.
Yeah.
Satan, the satanic, is the self-glorifying, self-promoting spirit. And that never goes well. And it is the inverse, like a photographic negative of the Jesus spirit, which is the self-emptying, others-oriented, others-serving. If, there's a centrifugal, that means fleeing the center. That's the sort of Jesus model. It's others-oriented, but it's centripetal. Satan is like it's a vacuum saying me, me, me. And so this is a dynamic that we see all through the Bible. And another dynamic, come out of her, my people. John is quoting here from Isaiah 48 and 52, from Jeremiah 51. This idea to say, don't allow yourself to be integrated with values, with systems that are opposed to the lordship of Jesus. And so that is a note that struck. Another thing that is interesting here is, so Babylon's being judged.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of the city is empty, it's desolate and stuff, that is language that Isaiah also applies to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, you will be desolate to a place where nobody lives. And so this is language that in the Bible is often directed towards the city of God. But what's interesting is Babylon's punishment is not brought about by the people of God. God alone takes care of that. So this is interesting because I think a lot of Christians will read this and be like, and I am God's tool to bring vengeance on the Babylon of the world. And that's not what we see here.
Right.
What we see here is that God is the only one competent to deal with evil, the only one in whose hands vengeance is safe. Because when humans start to see themselves as God's tool of vengeance, that very quickly becomes very dark.
Sure.
And these are a few things I notice here. Are there any things that you notice or any questions?
Just small questions.
Yeah.
So in verse 7, says, she said in her heart, I'm the queen, I'm on the throne. Those feel very natural power statements. The next one, I'm not a widow. I'm never going to be a mourner. What's the significance if I'm not a widow? Do we know?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Why is that part of her power statement?
That's an interesting question. I mean, widows in that world were very vulnerable.
Yeah.
In the prior chapter where Babylon is the whore, she's riding on the beast. And so that's sort of her consort in a way. Also her consort, like she's also sleeps with all the kings of the world or whatever.
Right.
I think what it means is to say, I'm invulnerable.
Okay.
My power base is secure.
Okay.
I'm not ever gonna be moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the cue for, okay, now you're about to be destroyed.
Yeah. Have you seen, this is a small tangent, the newer Snow White movie?
I have not.
The real life one.
I have not.
So the way that the way they portray the queen in this movie is they do a good job at kind of depicting her this way.
Does she have a green face? Or is that Wizard of Oz?
This one has like a cap with a pointy crown, so you see no hair.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is the queen, the mirror on the wall queen.
Okay, got it.
This is the queen we're talking about.
Got it.
But in this real life movie, they show her corruption a little bit more, especially how lavishly she lives compared to the very poor village people.
Yep.
The village people are scraping by in actual rags, not able to have full meals, and then they show her, and she has diamonds, and and her nails are super long and very, they almost look like weapons in and of themselves. And then her tables are full of all of this food and these riches and this luxury. As I'm reading this, her wickedness and her luxury and her pride, if you need a visual of that is the visual that I have in my head of this very corrupt, evil queen that is lavish, has all these lavish things, but at the expense of all these other people.
Correct.
Anyway.
Correct. And that's the exact opposite of the Jesus model.
Yes.
Which says, I'm actually going to humble myself, live a very poor lifestyle. I mean, it's just, the Snow White model is what happens when people are given power. Like it is. And that's why Jesus had to come to like reset the template of what it means to be a real leader.
Right.
And
and it's never enough. Like
it is never enough. Correct.
The more that they have in this luxury, the more bloodthirsty they become of it. And again, sorry, I keep going back to the movie because I visuals help me understand. In the movie, somebody like steals potatoes because they're actually starving. And that made her all the more mad and all the more selfish and all the more need for grasping of power and control.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, you look at like billionaires today.
Yeah.
Or people who have hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever, and they're really all racing each other, or they're often insecure. Like you're in the top 1.0001% of the world, but you feel like you don't have enough money. What planet do you live on?
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking. So in my world, the Warriors basketball.
Yes.
I've been watching all summer. Jonathan Kuminga. So for context, he's a gifted young basketball player. He's 22 years old.
Ooh, that's young.
Wildly gifted athletically. And yet he doesn't really fit into the Warriors' fluid offensive system very well.
Okay.
And so all summer they've been trying to re-sign his contract. But basically what it comes down to is he wants more money than they're willing to give him. And so he's holding out and saying, I'm not signing that until you give me more money or more control over my career. And the Warriors are saying, sorry, you're not worth that much. And, but it's like, dude, you're 22 years old. You're being paid scores of millions of dollars to play a game.
Yeah.
And but you're saying that's not enough money. Like what planet are you on that's not enough money?
Right.
But we benchmark, we set our expectations based on who we choose to admire, who we choose to be role models for us. And then if we can't live up to that, or we can't do, well, we just feel poor. And it's amazing. Rich people will, and there's nothing, I don't have anything against rich people.
Yeah.
God doesn't have anything against rich people.
Yeah.
But God does have something against foolishness, where you live in such a way that this becomes the all-consuming anxiety of your life. And that often happens when you're like, when you make the decision to live in the richest neighborhood you can possibly afford, drive the nicest cars you can possibly afford, wear the nicest clothes, the most lavish vacations you can possibly afford. So you're always pushing the upper limit of what you could possibly afford, which is just a recipe for chronic anxiety and lack of satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that these sorts of human impulses, it's not an American symptom. It's not a modern symptom. These are things that go back deep, deep, deep into history. It's a part of the human brokenness, and we're all vulnerable to it, So this isn't to like heap on the rich to make ourselves feel good.
Yeah.
This is to say, well, money, as they say, makes you more of what you already are. So it just kind of like amplifies who you already are.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and this is very on point. This is actually not a tangent, because in the next passage and so forth, we're going to be talking about money and the role of it in Babylon's oppression.
Okay.
So why don't we read the next bit here?
Picking up in verse 9.
Yeah, and let me just preface it. So what we're going to see here in the next little bit are three groups of people who are weeping.
Okay.
And they are weeping because of the fall of Babylon. And the three groups are the kings of the earth, the merchants, so the power economic figures, and then the sailors who they manned the boats that were taking the cargoes to and fro in the
transporting of goods.
In the Roman lake called the Mediterranean. Okay. So why don't you read through verse 13?
Okay. So picking up verse 9, Babylon's judgment. The kings of the earth who committed fornication with her and shared her luxury will weep and lament over her, and when they see the smoke from her fire, they will stand far off, fearful of her tortures. Alas, alas, they will say, the great city, Babylon, the powerful city, your judgment has come in a single hour. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because nobody will buy their cargo anymore. Their cargo of gold and silver and of precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet and all the sweet-smelling wood, carved ivory, vessels of expensive wood, brass, iron, marble, cinnamon, oriental spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and bodies. Yes, human lives.
First reactions from you?
Well, first reaction, the bodies, the human lives are, anyway, that stuck out. The first reactions, okay, but that's a long list of fine things. And I don't know. I'm still processing a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll a couple things to notice here. So the kings and the merchants, these are people who benefited from the system and who stand to lose when the system collapses. And just as a reminder, actually, very often when Revelation is using language of, and the sun went dark, or, cosmological language, all the rivers turned to blood and so forth, that is often ways of speaking about what we're seeing here, maybe in a little more transparent language. It's often a symbolic way of speaking, not of the end of the space-time physical universe, but of the breakdown of what we would call political and social and economic systems. So it's a total catastrophe. But Revelation isn't trying to get us on our pins and needles and say, oh crap, are atoms going to cease to exist anytime soon? That's actually not the point. God is actually very loyal to atoms. God is committed to the good of his material creation and is opposed to human constructs, human inventions that degrade God's good creation. So what we're seeing here, I think, is very helpful, because it's in a way less symbolic than some of the rest of Revelation, where it's like, oh, so you mean we're seeing the breakdown of the Roman globalization system? Yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing here. And this is a very far-flung, I mean, if you go, there's like some 26 items here. John, the writer, is building on his template, are lists in Ezekiel 37. If you read Ezekiel 36 through 38, it's a full-on denunciation of this port city north of Israel called Tyre, and Tyre. And it actually, in antiquity, it was an island fortress out in the Mediterranean. And then Alexander the Great came, and when Alexander the Great conquered it, he actually built a causeway, like an artificial land bridge out there to defeat it. And then that land bridge silted up over time. And so now it's just like a peninsula. But it was a trading powerhouse throughout the Mediterranean. And Ezekiel lays into them. And that passage, along with a passage like Jeremiah 50 through 51, which lays into Babylon, that's the template in the background of what John is saying here. So spending some time with those passages would be helpful.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of the items listed here. Some would be like basic trading items like wheat, flour, cattle, horses. These are not luxury items. These are just like subsistence items.
Okay.
But beginning of the list, a lot of these things, the silks, the purples, the sweet-smelling woods, the brass, these are the sorts of luxury goods affiliated with first century rich Roman families who I read a little bit about gold, for example. So like most Roman gold came from mines in Spain. Rome took over those mines from the Spanish peoples. And then in first century Roman culture, some people were like covering the ceilings of their houses with gold. There was a law passed in the year, I believe, 16 against having plates, dinner plates of pure gold, because that was, I actually don't know why that law was passed, but I saw that the law was passed.
Okay.
Even the women who were not rich were starting to use gold shoe buckles, such that the rich women were like, well, we're going to use silver because we don't like that gold is everywhere. And one ancient commentator said, if the Romans find that yellow metal anywhere, now you're their enemy because they're just like, we want that gold so much. And so it's not that gold itself is wicked. As we'll see, the New Jerusalem has gold. In fact, the New Jerusalem is built on the model of the Holy of Holies in the Old Testament, where it's a cube. It's like same width, length, height. It is a cube of gold. And that is pointing to the Holy of Holies from the Old Testament. So gold is not bad.
Yeah.
But the Roman obsession with exploitative economic practices concerning gold, that is what is being condemned here. And you could go list by list, I mean, or item by item. These cargoes are coming from India, from China, Arabia, Africa. It really is a global system. And yet, what you notice there at the end is kind of the twist that is a summary comment on the whole. It says, oh, yes, and also bodies.
Yeah.
Bodies.
Human bodies.
And then it says even human souls, even human lives.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a summary statement on the contempt for human life that upholds this whole system. Now, in the first century, slavery has been something common to almost all civilizations of all time. What today we take for granted with air conditioning and lights and plumbing and laundry machines and all this stuff, there are much of history that was done by slaves, and it was done by almost every people group has been on the oppressed side and on the oppressor side. But the Bible says, and this is one of its places, where it says, yeah, and that's wrong. That's evil. It's the God of the Bible is the God of the Exodus who delivered the slaves. And so it is a commentary on the idolatrous system, because idols are going to demand more and more sacrifices, even human sacrifices. And what it is saying here is that even first century slaves, which were seen according to the leading thinkers of the time as sort of subhuman, like they have no place in the political order, they have no rights, they're just subhuman. The Bible says, no, on the contrary, those are human lives. it is a profound indictment of the worldview. And any thoughts on that?
Well, to kind of keep going with that, the other part that stood out was the single hour. So all of this,
yes,
how Babylon, how this whole city over centuries or over years, centuries, like was being built up. All of this energy, all of this power, all of this, everything was going to build up this massive thing. And then in a single hour, broke down.
Right.
And I don't know, like how you said, like God is ultimately the one that has final judgment that can literally take something down like that.
Right.
And so what are we putting our energy towards? What are we putting the power or what we are capable of toward? How are we using that? Is it to build something beautiful and to glorify God, or is it just for the sake of having more power?
Right.
What am I putting my energy toward that? I mean, in a single second can be broken down by God. Like, I don't know. So and kind of how you mentioned all of these items like gold, not necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Incense, not necessarily a bad thing. Marble, not necessarily a bad thing. But when you are grasping for more, and turning it into something that can be destructive or harmful for another human life. I don't know. It's kind of a jumble of thoughts that I have going and how they're all connecting right now. But that's in that the single hour thing was just stood out, and how this massive thing, God can take it just like that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and think of like a stock market crash.
Yeah.
Where like in like 2 days, like boom, trillions of dollars are gone. Think of like the 2008 financial housing crisis, where like you have people who thought they were millionaires who are suddenly penniless. Or, in the 90s, the .com, any new company that said, oh, we're the so-and-so .com, so much money's being poured into that and it didn't pan out. And so the quickness of the reversal is part of what's being emphasized here. However, Jesus uses a similar metaphor, except for he's emphasizing the slowness. He says, don't put your treasures on earth. Actually, Jesus says it could be fast or slow. He says, don't put your treasures on earth where a thief can break in and steal. Boom. Or where moths will eat it and rust will destroy it. Moths and rust, it's very slow. It's like you left that thing in the garage for 20 years and now it's a piece of junk. And you were so excited when you bought it and now it's just trash.
Yeah.
And so Jesus, again, isn't saying don't have anything in this world. He's saying put your ultimate treasure in a secure bank, in a place that is not prone to the unreliability of the world. And so it's in our best interest. Is saying there's an inherent unreliability, and don't do that to yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I think too, maybe another comment here is why this long list of stuff? What's so evil about it? I was reading one commentator, Richard Bauckham, who was arguing that at the end, this imperial economy is taking far more than it is giving. It is, I think the example of the gold mines in Spain, that Rome just says, you know what, those mines are ours now. Instead of it being a source of local blessing for the local people who that's their natural resource, actually we're going to take all of that now. We'll give you a little kickback, but we're going to take far more than we're going to give. And I think that that's the fundamental evil. And I think also this is what ties this money aspect to the prostitution aspect, which is kind of like, I will give you my favors, but it's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you more than you want to pay, actually.
Yeah.
And so Rome is saying, here's all my glossy wares, here's all the good stuff, and I'm gonna tell you this is a great deal, but it's not a great deal. I'm actually going to be taking human souls. I'm going to be, and so I think that that's part of it as well. There's a lot of debate in our society today about the morality of capitalism, the morality of alternative economic frameworks. The sort of the going rival is socialism, and which is on a spectrum with communism, which has to do with who gets to make the decisions. Is it a central planned sort of endeavor? Is it like tons of competition? How is wealth distributed? How is wealth made? How is it divvied up? Where is it? Those deep questions. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm glad to know that the Bible thinks about those kinds of questions. But I think the Bible would also say the issue is more than economics. Mm-hmm. Bill Clinton was famed to have kind of kept as his when he was on the campaign trail, sort of like his guiding thought is like, keep it simple, stupid. It's about the economy. Mm-hmm. People want the economy to work. Mm-hmm. And if I can come through on the economy, I'll probably get elected. Mm-hmm. He was right. And at a certain political level, that is probably true. But what John, the writer, and the whole biblical witness is urging us is to see at a deeper level than that. It's not to say that level doesn't exist. It's to say that level rests atop things that are far more fundamental. And if you pledge your loyalty just to that pure economic sphere, you're going to be disappointed. Mm-hmm. Align your life rather with deeper truths. Mm-hmm. And then they will help you know how to navigate the complexities and reversals and ironies and it's all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But don't put all your chips there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's like pruning the top of a tree without making sure the soil is well watered and that the roots are healthy.
I think that's a great example. Yes, that's a great example.
That's all I got.
That's great. That's great. That's probably better than what I had. I prefer abstractions that make no sense. I appreciate you teach much more like Jesus, which is great.
Oh, I just like a good picture. Okay, so do you want to keep going with verse 14?
Let's read verses 14 through. Why don't you read all the way through verse 19?
Okay, so picking up in verse 14. All the fruit for which you longed has gone from you. All your luxuries and sparkling objects have been destroyed. You won't find them anymore. The merchants who sold these things and who made themselves rich from her will stand a long way off for fear of her tortures. They will weep and mourn and say, alas, alas, the great city. It was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, decked out in gold, precious stones, and pearls. But in a single hour, such great wealth has been destroyed.
That's the single hour theme again.
Yep. Keep going.
Yep.
All the master mariners, all those who ply their ships to and fro, all sailors and all who do business on the sea stood a long way off and shouted out when they saw the smoke of her fire. Who is like the great city, they said. They threw dust on their heads and shouted out, weeping and mourning. Alas, alas, they said, the great city. Everyone who has ships on the sea could get rich from her wealth, but in a single hour she has become a desert. Is it significant, the question of who is like the great city? Because there's many verses that ring out like, who is like the Lord?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the idolatry. A good example is when young David, is on the run, and he goes to Nob, N-O-V, and needs a weapon. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, we don't have any weapons here except for the sword of Goliath. And David goes, there's none like it. Give it to me.
Yeah.
But that seems to be a moment of slippage in David's exclusive reliance on God.
Got it.
He was relying on in Hebrew, it's Ein Kamocha. Mm-hmm. There's none like you, O Lord. But then he's starting to say, there's none like that great military power right there. I need that.
Yeah.
And so that's a great catch, Lindsay. I think that's really going on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all these people who are weeping, finding this to be a total disaster, contrasts with the next verse. Why don't you read verse 20?
Okay. Celebrate over her, heaven and you holy ones, apostles and prophets, because God has passed against her the sentence she passed against you.
So this is everything that we've been reading about is good news. That thank God, evil doesn't get the final word.
Yep.
And in the Old Testament, thank God that Babel, the Tower of Babel, fell. That's wonderful. And it's not because God doesn't want people to have great names. This is a key moment in the book of Genesis. At the end of chapter 11 in Genesis, the people of Babel say, we're going to make a name for ourselves. Or it's, I guess, the beginning of the chapter. And God says, no, you're not doing that. But then at the beginning of chapter 12, God picks a man named Abraham and says, I will make your name great.
Yeah.
So God's not against great names.
Yeah.
He's against humans that are obsessed with making their own names great. God says, I will make your name great. Think about Philippians chapter 2, where Jesus empties himself, takes on the form of a human, of a servant, obedient to death, even death on the cross. And then the second half there of that poem, it says, therefore God has exalted him and given him the name that is above every name. So Jesus himself didn't say, I've got to make a name for myself. God gave him the name that is above every name. And so these sort of like series of contrasts, we see that here, where there are contrasting reactions to the fall of Babylon. It's terrible news for a lot of people who've put all their hope in that that way of being. And when it demised, and it says, and they're weeping over the smoke of her fire. In chapter 19, it says, and that smoke goes up forever and ever, which indicates that's chapter 19, verse 3.
Oh, I see.
It suggests this isn't just a temporary setback for Babylon. Oh, we burned a quarter of the city, but we'll build it back again. No, the smoke goes up forever and ever. This is a final destruction. And that's really good news. And one of the things that's interesting is the sort of like almost karmic comes around, goes around type of quality here, where it says, God has passed against her the sentence she passed against you. And this gestures back to a very ancient law in Deuteronomy chapter 19, verses 16 through 20. And it's the punishment for false accusers. And so if you accuse somebody of something they didn't do, and it's found out, you lied, you perjured, then you are going to receive the punishment that you were going to hope was going to happen to them. This happens here, but at the level of the whole city.
Right.
And the level of the whole system. One of the main things that Revelation's trying to get us to do is to see the difference between truth and lies. And lies often take the form of false accusation. If it's true, as Jesus says, that Satan is the father of lies, that when he speaks lies, he speaks his native language. It's also true that Hasatan, the Satan, is an accuser.
Right.
Is somebody who calls evil what is not evil and calls good what is not good.
Right.
And so there's I think what's beautiful here is how so many of these elements in John's vision, you pull on the thread and it goes directly to the Torah. It goes directly to the prophets. And so again, we've seen this through this whole study in Revelation. It's very, very hard to understand this book if you don't love the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
The Bible of Jesus, the Bible of John, the Bible of Paul. That is the foundation for understanding all of this stuff.
I think Tim Mackey calls them hyperlinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's like the one we did with who is like the great city. If you click on that hyperlink, how it would call back to all of these other things previously in the
But if
Torah,
you don't know the Torah, then when you click on the link, it's like page cannot load.
Yeah.
Page cannot load. Page cannot load.
Yeah.
And you're like, this website sucks.
Yeah. 404.
No. Actually, user error. You actually haven't. So that's part of our problem is either dead hyperlinks or we don't even know how to recognize a hyperlink. We're like, I didn't realize the words were glowing in blue and saying, click me, click me.
Right.
So, and speaking of Old Testament callbacks, will you read the next verse? Because this one's a strong
21?
OT callback. Yeah.
Okay, for starting verse 21. Then a strong angel picked up a rock like a huge millstone and hurled it into the sea with these words, Babylon, the great city, will be thrown down like that with a splash and will never be seen again.
Great.
Okay.
So this
Millstone?
so this is what's called, often called like a prophetic sign act, where the prophet will dramatize the message. Jesus goes into the temple and starts turning over tables and whipping things. He doesn't need to say anything. He is dramatizing God's judgment on the temple establishment.
Okay.
Jesus himself, this image here of a huge millstone thrown into the sea, and there's a poof. A millstone, by the way, it's actually almost like as big as this table.
Yeah.
And there would be almost like two of them. They're thick, and one would turn atop the other. And it was a mill.
I see.
It would crush grain.
Okay.
And so it turned like wheat straight from the field. It allowed it to become like flour, so you could bake it.
And they're heavy.
These are huge.
It's concrete.
Yeah.
Well, the equivalent of stone.
Yeah. Very, very heavy, very, very big. Jesus uses such an image a couple times. He says, if anybody abuses children or hurts them, it would be better for you. It would be better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown into the sea.
Ooh.
Jesus says another time, looking at the Temple Mount, it says, you see this mountain? It will be thrown into the heart of the sea. And so when John says, strong angel picked up a rock like a huge millstone, hurled it, and says, that is going to be like Babylon. This is a type of image we've seen before. And also I want to read here from Jeremiah chapter 51.
Okay.
This is ESV. Jeremiah wrote in a book all the disaster that should come upon Babylon. Long tradition of pointing out Babylon. It's not going to go well for you. All those words that are written concerning Babylon. Jeremiah said to Sariah, when you come to Babylon, see that you read all these words and say, O Lord, you have said concerning this place that you will cut it off so that nothing shall dwell in it, as we saw. Neither man nor beast shall be desolate forever. Which, by the way, today it is. Like the ruins of Babylon are in southern Iraq, and it's like south of Baghdad quite a bit. And there's like nothing much there today.
That's wild.
Interestingly. Jeremiah goes on, when you finish reading this book, tie a stone to it and cast it in the midst of the Euphrates and say, thus shall Babylon sink to rise no more because of the disaster that I am bringing upon her. And they shall become exhausted. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. So Jeremiah uses this same image to say, you see that sinking rock? That's the future of Babylon. So John is repurposing, giving a fresh picture from the elements that he's inherited in his scriptures. We've seen this again and again, but
and the idea is that once that thing is tossed down, it is not coming back up. It's not coming back up again.
Yep, exactly.
It's ruins down there, much like the Titanic. Not coming back up again.
Much like the Titanic.
Okay.
Unless you go down there in a high pressure submarine.
That didn't work out
which
too well.
Sometimes doesn't work out very well indeed. All right. Back to Revelation.
Okay.
Why don't you just read the rest of the passage?
Okay.
We've got just a few more verses.
Okay, we're picking up in verse 22.
Yep.
Never again will people hear the sound of harps, musicians, flute players, and trumpeters in you. Never again will there be any skilled workmen plying their trade in you. Never again will people hear the sound of the mill in you. Never again will anyone see the light of a lamp in you. Never again will anyone hear the voice of bridegroom and bride in you. Your merchants were the mighty ones of the earth. All the nations were deceived by your magic. In her has been found the blood of prophets and God's holy ones and all who have been slaughtered on the earth. And that's chapter 18.
And that's chapter 18. Yeah, I think the line there at the end, the wording is really key. Okay. In her has been found the blood of prophets and God's holy ones. So it is opposed, like violently opposed to people who will not swear allegiance to this system. Okay. But it says also the blood of all those who have been slaughtered on the earth. And so that seems to suggest maybe not people who are like faithful to Christ, but who have been otherwise killed. They are casualties of Rome's ambitions.
Got it.
And I love that the Bible draws that in. The Bible isn't so obsessed with the home team of God's people, God's people, God's people, that it also doesn't look further afield and say, wow, the wiping out of those people too is really wicked and evil. And so it's just, man, I mean, I love history. I'm very interested in history, and recently was reading about Stalin, Joseph Stalin, and certainly upwards of 20 million souls were killed during his rulership in the Soviet Union as he transitioned from sort of a peasant economy to a modern industrial powerhouse, militarized and all this stuff. But like, at what cost? And it's just, man's inhumanity to man is just tremendous. And I again, probably just bring us back to where we started. It's a huge sigh of relief. I can't control this stuff. I can't fix this stuff.
Yeah.
I have very small agency in this world. I have some, but it's in the big picture, it's incredibly small.
Right.
But I take great relief saying, thank God that God A, cares about this stuff. That B, God has promised to do something about it. And 3, that God has already in principle defeated it at its source through the self-giving sacrificial love of Jesus, and shown a way through, and that I can participate in the way of Jesus and do my tiny little bit, and trust and try to make wise decisions, and try to, use whatever agency you can. Like, try to work as hard as you possibly can for the value system of the kingdom of God. Yes. But at the end of the day, knowing that these things are in God's hands.
Yes.
Those are the only hands where it's actually safe. There's a lot of things I don't understand, but that doesn't mean they're not understandable or that they will never make sense. It just means I'm unable to understand them.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I should be despairing or apathetic or angry or bitter. It actually means I can be hopeful, and I can look forward to a victory that's already promised. And so I think at like an emotional level, like, I love the history and the literature. It's super cool. But like at an emotional, personal level, it's also just a big, like, okay, it's going to be okay. I can have hope. And that's where it leaves me. Where does this stuff leave you, Lindsay?
It leaves me. What's the opening of Psalm 1? Planted.
Blessed is the one who does not
walk in the way of sinners.
Walk in the way of sinners, or stand in the place of Ashereya Ish Asher Lo Alach B'Tzato Shayim.
There it is.
But yes.
Okay, the point I'm getting, planted by streams of water. Isn't that in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So kind of what we were talking about pruning a tree and making that the focus rather than where you're planted and the soil being good.
Right.
So I'm getting somewhere with this. It gives me hope when thinking about all this to make sure that I am planted by streams of water. Like, I'm making my soil rich and being fed by the Lord, and starting there. I don't have to make sure I'm beautifully pruned on like the outside and making sure all that is up to the Lord. What I can make sure is that I am planted and make in a healthy place with Him, and let that be my step one.
Yep.
And then God will make the rest flourish. So if I'm planted and I'm making sure I'm rooted in the Lord, He will take care of the rest.
Right.
Justice, judgment, all of that, will follow.
Right. And I think that the continuation of Psalm 1 says, what makes you flourish? What makes the tree healthy? It's a symbol for a person. They meditate on the Torah day and night. So it is a way of life that is in close daily, hourly, regurgitative dialogue with the scriptures is what actually, that's the thing we can take care of. And that's the thing that helps us when we get out of balance, when we get scared, when we get alarmed, when we get despondent, when we get any sort of reaction. It is the daily connection to the Word that helps us stay in that centered, fruitful spot. And I that is something I can't control.
Yeah.
And, I can get my butt out of bed
Yes.
and make the time and turn off my phone. And that never fails for me to like, I feel well watered afterwards.
Right.
So
right. And there's so many more ways we can start our day. We can start it by looking at our business plan. We can start it by like, what's the news say? We can start it by kind of elevating some of these other things that can kind of take it. And they're not bad things.
Right.
They're not bad things, but it can go down this road of grasping for power. And so, but if we start the other way, start with the meditating on scripture, start with spending time with the Lord, start with that, the rest will follow. Amen. Yeah.
Amen. I was going to ask you to sing. We won't do that. She's an amazing singer, by the way. Lindsay's like a really gifted musician. So.
Thank you.
All right, let's put a pin in it there.
Okay.
I'm glad Babylon's done for.
Same.
And this episode is done for too.
This is.
So thank you, Lindsay.
Yes.
Hey guys, I hope this was helpful. Hit us up sometime with any questions. You could add comments, questions, share all the stuff. And until next time, as the ancient rabbis always greeted one another, it said, farewell, shalomi homies. Bye-bye.